So let me begin by asking you about your very brave and radical 3 week masturbatory experiment. You know, women or girls particularly, they tend to masturbate less. That is what we are. I mean, tend to believe as culture, even with all the sex positive campaigns and messages aimed at them. Boys masturbate more than girls or women. So, what is it that made you undertake such a radical experiment? What was it that you were trying to prove, or what was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, so I think just in terms of your first point, there is kind of this cultural kind of belief that boys maybe masturbate more than girls, but I'm here to tell you anecdotally and research wise that girls definitely are masturbating. So let's put that myth to bed, literally and figuratively. But yeah, in terms of my own masturbation experiment, I wanted to conduct, a single subject longitudinal study with the Magic Wand. They are one of our amazing, iconic sponsors at Sex Ed with DB, and it's one of my personal favorite toys. So I thought, why not? Let's try it.
Mm.
And yeah, I ended up, doing a 3 week experiment
Mm.
where the first week was abstinence week, no sexual activity at all. The second week was treatment week, where magic wand use every day. And the
Mm.
third week was regular week, so regular sexual activity as normal.
Mm.
And during that time, I record measures on 27 variables,
Okay.
including things like stress, anxiety, productivity, mood, orgasm experience, horniness, and
Yeah,
much
yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah,
And then my team and I analyzed the results. So
yeah,
that's kind
yeah,
of a little bit more about the experiment.
yeah. But what made you do that? I mean, what was it that prompted you to go for that experiment? Is it
The
something you were
motivation.
planning for a long time, or is it something which happened quite suddenly?
Well, yeah, Magic Wand and I kind of discussed it, and I was kind of like, what can we do together that is really unique and that no one else is really doing or talking about, which is kind of in our own hands, literally taking our own pleasure and doing a research experiment on it. Like there are research studies on pleasure for women and pleasure for people with vulvas, but they're few and far between compared to men's pleasure and those studies. And so I wanted to kind of contribute to that research and also have something to show that yes, masturbation does have really real health impacts on our lives.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. That is absolutely wonderful. In fact, the you at the beginning itself, you put to rest the myth that girls tend to masturbate less than boys. But also, if you look at anatomically, the way men or boys masturbate or tend to they start masturbating is by exploring their genitalia at a very young age during urination and all that. But that kind of a process is not something that happens naturally with girls. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So I just want to understand from you, what was your age of sexual awakening like as far as masturbation is concerned?
Yeah, so in terms of your point, it definitely is something that happens with girls. It just looks different. So instead of, exploring genitalia during urination, it's like humping something because that feels good, right? So like it definitely does happen with girls. It just happens in a different way. And yeah, I just like many other girls and women like started masturbating at a young age. I think, probably like 5, 6, 7 years old, not really knowing what it means, what to call it, the fact that it was, shameful, I definitely remember feeling shame about it, but not really understanding why. No one really sat me down and was like, this is what you're doing and it's healthy. You just need to do it in your room or whatever it was. But yeah, I would say, most people, start masturbating at early ages. And if you don't, or if you're not curious about it, usually there's some sort of religious or cultural or kind of societal norm that you're kind of afraid of or feeling really, really guilty or shameful or sinful about. And so, yeah, even folks who are religious definitely do masturbate at young ages. It's whether or not they tell you that that's true or not.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. To a point which I wanted to discuss with you during your experiment, you also mentioned about usage of porn. Again,
Mhm.
porn is something which men use as a masturbatory aid. So, how do you think about if is it the trend of women using porn for masturbation? Is this practice, is this trend growing? especially with the widespread prevalence of pornography and smartphones, where all these sexually stimulating images have become so widespread and accessible.
I would say for women, it looks different, but it is equally as effective and used, which is instead of like video porn, audio erotica is very, very popular, as
Oh,
well as romance novels, which very much can serve as smut or porn. And so I just think the way that women generally receive porn just looks different than how men receive it and how they watch it and how they consume it. And so, yeah, the romance novel category is like the most popular category of book in the US. So I think given that, like people are definitely using that to sexually stimulate themselves as pornography. It just looks different, right? Or
yeah.
feels different. But yeah, audio erotica is definitely becoming more and more popular. And that is just a different way of storytelling. Women typically like to kind of conjure the images rather than maybe see them. Everyone's different. Like women definitely do watch porn like men do, but I do think that reading it and hearing it is more popular, at least in the US for women.
But do you think maybe over the last decade or so, there has been a change in the kind of erotica which women have been accessing, especially with the popularity of 50 Shades of Grey? And they tend to look at more hardcore erotic, at least from the reports and surveys which Pornhub have been doing. They claim to say that there are more women watching porn. So, do you think women's visual arousal pattern, from what we used to understand earlier, is kind of changing with the prevalence of porn? What is your impression?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's changing. I do think, at least in the US, there's more of the concept of ethical porn. So essentially making sure that the actors are paid well, the production, isn't troublesome, the marketing isn't exploitative, all of those things. And so I do think it's more popular. I think, Pornhub is like one of the most visited websites in the world. And there's a lot of traffic that goes there every year. And it's only increasing as people get more and more access to the internet, and smartphones and such. But I think that porn isn't going anywhere. It's definitely it has its place in society, even if it's this like still taboo thing. And yeah, I definitely think even though, it wasn't as fantastic as everyone would have liked, 50 Shades of Grey and things like that definitely made BDSM and kink more a part of the conversation.
Okay, it has become kind of normalized. Is that what you're saying? They have become more kind of mainstream, or looking at porn is no longer kind of that has that kind of a shock value which it used to have.
I think it is. I think it, depending on the circles that you run in, right? Like if you're in a really religious community, it's still very, very not allowed and, prohibited and taboo. But I do think in more mainstream, more liberal communities, it's definitely seen as less of a shock and more of like a thing that people do use during sexual stimulation.
Okay, okay. Also, one of the purpose of your experiment was to find out how pleasure influenced all aspect of your life, right? What was your finding like? How significant was the pleasure aspect on your relationships and social life during the?
Yeah. Totally. So it was very, very clear to me that based on this experiment, there were a few things that I saw to be true based on my self-reported data. I was happier, less tension filled, less stressed during the Magic Wand week. And that had residual effects the following week. So it was really clear to me that like I cracked my own happiness code. If I got good sleep and regular exercise and kept my stress low and had really solid sexual pleasure, then I could be the best version of myself. So if you think of it like a pizza pie, right? Like
Yeah.
each slice is something different. One
Mhm.
is good sleep. One is you're feeling fulfilled in your relationship. One is that you're feeling fulfilled in your friendships, low work stress, you exercise, etc. You're eating healthy. And then one slice of that pie is sexual satisfaction. And I don't think that we try to hack our sexual satisfaction as much as we do with calorie counting and fitness and doing our routines and meditation and like all of these things that we're so passionate about for health and wellness, but we don't consider sexual health and wellness to be a part of that. And my argument is that we should.